Hello and welcome to What the Tech from Boast AI, where we talk with some of the brilliant minds behind new and exciting tech initiatives to learn what it takes to tackle technological uncertainty and eventually change the world. I'm Paul Davenport, Boast resident tech journalist, and today I'm thrilled to welcome onto the show Profitual CEO and founder Raymond Fitzpatrick. Ray is an experienced finance leader and former VC who is on a mission to democratize financial intelligence for SMEs. That's what his team at New Brunswick-based Profitual are executing every day, providing innovative AI-powered financial tools that transform complex data into clear, actionable insights, allowing founders to make confident decisions as they scale. Profitual was born out of a desire to level the playing field for startup founders who are determined to disrupt their industries, but lack that financial expertise to navigate growth alone. It's an ethos we embrace deeply here at Boast, and I can't wait to pick Raymond's brain on his journey through the startup space, his experience as a founder, what sets Profitual apart from other solutions, and what's on deck as they support startups on their growth journeys. So, without further ado, welcome to the show, Raymond.
Thanks, Paul. Happy to be here.
I'm so glad you could join me. So, give a little bit of background about Profitual and a little bit of a peek into your past. But to kick things off, tell us about yourself. How did you get into the entrepreneur space, and how did you get into this position today where you're supporting other founders on their growth journeys?
Yeah, so entrepreneurship really started early with me. Both of my parents owned small businesses of their own. So I used to get to sit there on Sunday and see my mom and my dad doing the accounting books at the table. So long history and started from a very early age in entrepreneurship. As far as being more so like in tech though, because my parents were more traditional business. My dad's a mechanic. I really got my taste in tech when I started working as a pre-seed venture capitalist for a fund based in New Brunswick called the New Brunswick Innovation Foundation. So we made investments anywhere from 50,000 up to $1 million into new startup companies. And by the time I left after 10 years, we had a portfolio of about 75 unique startups. So it was really there that I got to meet the entrepreneurs and see what drives them and really learn about what makes a great tech company. And then, after 10 years of MBIF, decided to flip the script and go from an investor to the entrepreneur. So now it's been 3 years with Profitual.
That is awesome. So, listeners to the podcast are going to notice a theme here. Some of the coolest tech and the best entrepreneurs that we talked to, they had parents who were small business owners, or they had parents who were literally doing it themselves. And like that example you shared about Sunday morning, even getting behind the counter or just looking at the books, that is kind of what plants a seed, I think, for a lot of entrepreneurs. And again, it's great because parents lead by example. They give their kids that spirit, but it's also not handing things to them, I think, which is something that's really, really cool. You really have to earn your own because you saw how it was done in the real world to support your family. So, just a small anecdote because this is maybe the fifth in a row now that people have come
Okay.
from. Yeah. And I think it's awesome because I don't have a lot of that in my network, but just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, I'm in tech now, but my first kind of business endeavor, so I mentioned my dad's mechanic. I actually would go to car auctions with my dad and buy cars, and then him and I would fix them up. And I've spent many a cold winter's night selling a Chevrolet Cavalier in a Walmart parking lot. So I have, from a more of a grassroots level, really learned everything about business from my parents, and it was from a traditional perspective. But you got to learn how to negotiate, you got to learn how to sell things, you got to have a product and see its value. Really, all of those things were instilled by my parents.
That is so cool. I'm staring at a poster of classic American cars that I have right here. Me and my dad in a different world would have been selling cars in the Walmart parking lot on a snowy afternoon. That is so awesome to hear. We rebuilt Camaros actually back when I was in high school, and I
Super
have a
cool.
plastic model that I have made zero progress on that he gave me for Christmas this year that's sitting in my kitchen. So enough of that tangent, but
Yeah.
one thing I want to pick up on before we got straight to Profitual too is you talked about just kind of working in the New Brunswick ecosystem and being a VC specifically for tech and new businesses in New Brunswick. I guess could you paint a picture for me of what kind of like the tech ecosystem in New Brunswick looks like today? We haven't had a lot of founders from your corner of Canada on the show, and I think clearly there's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of investment there. Let's maybe intro some of the folks who don't know about what they could do there or some of the other ecosystem partners that you've kind of helped support over your journey.
Yeah, there's There's a good tech ecosystem within New Brunswick. So a lot of it, stems even from like the university. So the University of New Brunswick, we've got some, great professors in the engineering and computer sciences. A lot of those professors have started startup companies that now employ quite a few people. So right from that really early education at the university, training really great entrepreneurs. And even if they don't go on to start their own companies, a lot of them go to work with startups. So they get a lot of great training. So lots of great folks here. The New Brunswick Innovation Foundation, from a venture capital perspective, is very active. So they're one of the more active government-like venture capital firms in Canada. And then there's angel networks like East Valley. And they're angel investors within my company at Profitual, but they have a vast amount of companies within their portfolio. So it's kind of a great combination of talented people, hardworking folks, and then you put in the addition of capital, and it's a good recipe to have a very vibrant startup ecosystem.
That is awesome. Yeah, I'm based down here in Boston. Actually, I'm the American on the Boast team, and I'm very familiar. Like we used to work with Volta up in Halifax, Nova Scotia. A lot of just like kind of the maritime missions because they're very aligned with a lot of the work that happens down here in New England. So that's awesome to hear, and especially that academia angle too, just because there's funding opportunities too if you work with the university systems and if you work with the kind of collegiate level institutions. I'm thinking my tax immediately, but even on the provincial levels, there are a lot of funding avenues that you can take that are non-dilutive. It's whether it's grants, whether it's, hey, you built your business and came to shred and you're working with Boast. But I love hearing about that academic opportunity too, because that's really what boosts the whole ecosystem. Like if you can keep that talent that you've nurtured at your universities locally within the ecosystem and building some of the cool stuff with that support from everybody else, it's win-win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I
So
was just down at Dalhousie in Nova Scotia for Lab to Market Collide, and their goal is, there's like 40 companies that we're going through, but whether the companies actually spin out and become full-fledged ventures, it's kind of secondary to the point. It's to bring them through that entrepreneurial experience so that regardless of whether they spin out the company or join another startup, they have that educational background and can bring those skills.
oh, that's great, and that's awesome supporting the knowledge share in an uncynical way too.
Yeah.
It's literally getting those skills out there, and it's not like, okay, so now you're gonna be the next unicorn. Maybe not, but you're gonna help the larger ecosystem, and we're all gonna benefit from it by making sure that every single person has the access to those resources and that knowledge that they need to just do their best work in whatever capacity they're contributing to the startup ecosystem. So that's music to my ears. Now, diving into Profitual, tell me about the genesis. How did Profitual come about? We know how you got into the space to begin with. What got this going? And then, yeah, what's unique about what you're doing?
Yeah. So my career after university, I would have worked for two of the larger organizations in New Brunswick, McCain Foods and then Irving Oil. And I got to see what, you know, large companies with a bunch of, chartered accountants like myself could unleash so that they could have a really great financial understanding of their business. So saw and was trained firsthand on working with the operators who actually make the business decision to make sure they were making quality decisions backed by financial data. So we were able to uncover a lot of efficiencies with that process. Then I switched to working with the smallest companies in New Brunswick when I went to the New Brunswick Innovation Foundation, working with startups. And it was kind of interesting looking back over the 10 years I was an investor. I never once made an investment into someone with a finance background. They were from computer science, life sciences, engineers, basically every walk of life, and they were experts in those fields, but it was never finance. So I spent a lot of time with my background trying to help out those entrepreneurs. So, I wasn't able to work with all 75 portfolio companies or even the companies that we weren't able to invest in. So I tried to find some different third parties to help. Had a real hard time doing that. Checked in with the big accounting firms. They're absolutely fantastic at a lot of things, but working with really small startups really wasn't within their niche, just not big enough customer for them. Part-time CFOs was a bit better, but it was really hard to find someone, at an affordable cost that was sticking around for the long term. So a lot of times we found our part-time CFOs were in career transition themselves. So maybe they even left the KPMG or Deloitte. They do some consulting for a year, help out, but inevitably they'd find their next corporate gig and move on. So that was really the whole idea behind Profitual. Could we create a financial software that the non-finance user, we make it so easy that the non-finance user could actually build things like a budget and a financial forecast? Could we link in their actual accounting data so that on a nightly basis we can tell them, hey, this is where you're on plan, this is where you're off? Could we generate automated reports and show them benchmarking to say, hey, year over year growth rate, this is how you're doing, but by the way, this is how your peers are doing. How do you stack up? So that was the whole genesis behind the platforms. Could we create something that the non-finance user, like all of the entrepreneurs I was investing in, actually have the ability to use, that you don't need to be a CPA, and then make it really cost affordable. So, our pricing's $50 to $80 a month, much less than the cost of talking to an accountant.
Absolutely. Go explore that passion. All right, I'm thinking about a few things while we've been talking about this too. So, first one was backed by data. Just want to put that out there to begin with. You need data. It's the name of the game. It's how you make any decision. That's table stakes, obviously. But getting access to that data and knowing what data to look like, that's something that the non-finance folks who are entrepreneurs in your network, again, they just didn't have that in their back pocket. And there's not a Raymond for every single new startup in New Brunswick that they can tap into to help guide them on that. But sounds like you've almost created a way to give your expertise, give all of that out there in an easy way that entrepreneurs don't have to get a second expertise outside of their comp sci field or whatever their specialty is, because they need to do all the FP&A in their own house. So I love that. And also, again, gotta bring it back to Bose. It's such an ethos that we share here. Our goal is to let the innovators do what they do best, drive that innovation. Whatever industry that you're trying to get into, you can't be bisecting your focus. If you're driving some really cool AI, for instance, focus on that AI. Don't try to become a tax credit expert. We slice a level even deeper because a lot of our companies do have those finance pros. So they do have a CFO eventually, or they're doing some of the fractional or part-time CFO, or they're working with a KPMG and or they're working with a big four and they're maybe not getting exactly what they need because, again, they're a small line item in a big, big pond. So we want to make sure that those finance pros themselves who are helping steer these startups aren't overextending themselves or missing opportunities when it comes to tax credits, just because it is subjective. It's not something you can just off the shelf throw AI at to solve the problem. You'll leave money on the table and you'll get audited. You really need that expertise and an easy barrier to entry. There has to be almost no barrier to entry, more or less. And that's what we deliver. And I believe that's what you guys are delivering at Profitual too. You want it to make it so that someone can turn it on and start getting their FP&A in order today, more or less. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
100%. Yeah, we're right in kind of the middle with the county where we do that, FP&A, financial planning and analysis. The problem with accountants like me is we're always trying to shove income statement and balance sheet down our clients' throats. That's not how regular entrepreneurs think. So trying to provide something that's really tailored to them in a language they can understand. And to your point, Paul, I am a CPA. We have other CPAs on staff, but we have a bookkeeper. We have a bookkeeper that does our books because that's not where we should be spending our time. We outsource the shred. So we don't do things that aren't within our wheelhouse. We work with experts that have the specialty in those areas, and that frees us up to focus on what really matters with their business. So we don't want to turn people into CPAs. We just want to give them the information to run their business better.
I love that. Again, yeah, do what you're here to do. Get that business off the ground. We'll take care of the nitty gritty. Don't overextend yourself. But get that expertise. Don't phone it in. I think that's,
Exactly.
yeah. Now, funding innovation and actually getting Profitual off the ground. What did that look like? Did you lean on members of your community and some of the ecosystem partners that you named earlier to help? Again, don't have to talk about funding necessarily, but even get the resources that you need to really build the platform and the solutions that you deliver to these startups?
Yeah, we put together a pretty, I'd say, wholesome or fulsome view when we were starting the business on how to fund it. I'd say, I'm proud to say we're predominantly angel backed. So we are a company, we've raised a little over $2 million, predominantly from angel investors. I actually love going through the angel investment process. You might sit at a table with an angel, get grilled for 25 minutes, and sometimes it's no, sometimes you leave with a $30,000 check. To me, it really gets right down to the heart of your business and kind of that gut check. Okay, are you able to sell, and do you believe in what you're doing? So, love the fact that we're angel backed. But grant funding, non-dilutive funding has been a huge part of our process. Um, you know, the one thing I tell people is, grant funding, while it's a great resource, it's not free money, and sometimes it gets mistaken like that. Like there's a process that you need to go through. There's time to do the proposals. There's a lot of back and forth due diligence on some level, and then there's the follow up after the fact and reporting. So I think it's really important to look at the grant funding and really figure out what's the best bang for buck. And I can say for us personally, the two organizations that have been the best for us has been IRAP funding and Shred funding. I'd say the process is well documented on what you need to do. I don't find pulling everything together overly burdensome. I find the turnaround times to be the best of the other programs that we worked on. And frankly, the reporting's the best too. So I would say Shred and IRAP are been the two biggest things that we've tapped into. And it's because, bang for buck, I'm going after those every single year. There's other programs we've investigated or travel grants and things like that. I will not be going after those again because I think I could actually, save or make more money by selling our product than going through those kind of application processes and back and forth. So Shred and IRAP all the way.
I love to hear that, obviously, because that's what we do here at Boast. But I love the way you put it too, that it's not necessarily free money. It's like you really need to actually be making the case, and it's not an objective case necessarily either, too, to get that funding. You need to tell the story of your innovation in a way that isn't fiction, honestly. You need to have the receipts and you need to actually be doing that due diligence to, again, technological advancement, technological uncertainty. Are you tackling these things? The systematic investigation, applied research, basic research, all the greatest hits from the show here. I'm listing, but it's true. We often say it's free money, but it's more that it's an entitlement when you've done the work and you deserve it. And the government wants to be in business with you. You also had mentioned due diligence, and I know that's probably something that we hear all the time in our space because we're in the finance realm. But actually applying for these things when you truly deserve them, that is good due diligence. That is something that your investors are going to want to see. They want to make sure, hey, you're turning over every rock and also you're getting everything you're entitled to when you're doing that hard work. So it's just good business to go after these programs. And Shred and IRAP, they're super generous and in a way that, like, again, it's not just giving out the free money. They're zeroing in on those companies that really deserve it. And you can apply year after year because once you set up to claim Shred or IRAP and you're successful the first time, you have good processes in place that you make your Bible. You make it basically your operational go-to. And it becomes a virtuous cycle overall. You get better processes in-house that tee you up to maximize your Shred claims, get in the habit of documenting things appropriately so that you can actually make those claims. And then the government is going to get to know you as well, get excited about your tech. They're not going to take a microscope to it. You might still get audited. That actually might just mean they're interested to learn more about what you're doing because I've said it before. It's not an indictment on your Shred claim as you get audited for Shred. They do their due diligence and audit 25% of all claims on average. So it's going to come for you eventually if you're claiming Shred and you're doing things right on the long term. But that's why you need a partner who has that expertise, who can actually navigate the audit process when that comes. And again, have that documentation in their back pocket, have those receipts that they can show for you. And again, take that Shred claim, bring it to your investors, show them the work that you did. You can tell that story on many fronts. So I'm a broken record at this point about all of that, but I agree with so much of what you said there.
I love the entitlement when you deserve it. And we're gonna go through a technical review. It's the first time with IRAP, and our team sat around and like we welcome it. It's we're not doing anything we're not supposed to. We're actually really excited to talk to someone who's an expert in the space and say, hey, like we know no one can do these things and we want to try and tackle it. So it's actually something, it's not something to avoid. We're just, thrilled to actually be able to go through that process and show people what we're up to. I'd also say too, it's like, because we're a budgeting forecasting tool, is I've been kind of like a broken record on, I find too many of our clients, our startups, self-select themselves out of shred. They don't think what they're doing maybe technically, not technically hard enough in order to get the funding. And, we've also had companies that just don't push the limits on their shred claims. So working with someone like Boast and being able to get that expertise, like we've seen claims go from 200K a year to 900K a year, from 100 grand a year to 300 grand a year. Like this is like monumental change for these organizations. And we're talking about runway. It's sometimes the difference between a successful company and one that dies on the vine. So if anyone ever looked at my LinkedIn, you'll see like a quarterly post of, come on, talk to your shred consultant. There's no cost for you to like get a hold of these folks. They're experts in this space. And I have firsthand seen the change that it can make for a company when they're able to have those conversations and get those claims in.
You couldn't have said it better myself. Again, Rand, I think you need to tell a good story, but don't undersell yourself either. Like it is there if you deserve it. So love, love that. Now, I'd love to know. We're not quite coming up at time, but love to know what's on deck for Profitual. Actually, let me zoom back on that. Are there any specific companies that you're working with today that are telling a really good story, or that are maybe ones you want to shout out on the show just because they're really moving the needle?
Yeah, I got a couple clients. One would be Eigen Innovations in Fredericton, New Brunswick. They're working. They partner with the infrared camera company called FLIR, and they're able to do default detection, focusing predominantly right now on automotive manufacturing lines. So we just absolutely love what they're doing. One, from the fact of they're able to save their customers a lot of money, but they're also really reducing waste. So there's a real environmental impact in the work that they're doing, which is just absolutely fantastic. Then we have another client called Climative. They're doing energy assessments for houses. I kind of joked with the board at Climative when I met them. I was like, I'm that lazy guy that just wouldn't go get an energy assessment, even though he knows his windows are 30 years old and I could probably get a rebate to get it done. But I didn't want to go get an energy assessment, do the retrofitting, then get another energy assessment. Climate is able to do that all virtually. So, like, I believe in that company because it's going to get a lazy guy like me to change his windows, and that just wouldn't happen without them. So, it's really fun when I could kind of put yourself in, that ideal customer profile of your client and you're like, oh man, this is for me. Really love those two clients and those two companies we work with.
That is awesome. So actually, I know Winston from Climative. We had him on the show at the end of last year. I cornered him. I think it was at Collision Conference in Toronto. If not, whatever they call the big one, it might have been
Yep.
elevated. But I cornered him. I'm like, this is cool. His team gave me a demo because I'm like, I feel like I'm in his ICP. I was just like, I like struggle with all of this. I have the guilty conscience. I'm like,
Yep.
I'm flying a lot for work. Can I at least have my home not be a bigger problem than my travel's carbon footprint? And they gave me the pitch. Then I just like went back. I was like, can I film like an interview? We want to get this on camera. They're great guys. And also just like such a great mission. Yeah. Yeah. I back you up there. I was very excited to hear unplanned that they work with you as well. So again, we're bumping elbows with folks in the ecosystem here, and it's fantastic. I love to hear it. All right. Now, what's up next for Profitual? Like you said, angel investors, all of that, but you're also helping grow the rest of the community. What are your growth targets or what's on deck and what can we look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the one thing that I kind of trivialize going from investor to entrepreneur, it's easy to say, oh, you're building like financial software. You just take an Excel and put it into a platform. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's a lot harder than that. We're finally coming to a place now where we have a really rock solid platform, something that's delivering a lot of value. we've got clients that, have been able to save thousands of dollars. We've been clients that have been able to raise millions of dollars from venture capitalists and angels using the projections and the analysis that they got within our platform. So really, we're excited. We're about to actually spend money for the first time on marketing. So we got some stuff coming up. We're partnering with BetaKit here in Canada, and going to get our message out. And we're really excited. We want people on the platform. We want them to get value out of it, and we truly believe they will. So, we are angel backed company. We're looking to double revenue. We're looking to grow, and we're just super excited that we have enough feedback now. We believe, okay, now's the time, and we're really excited to pour the gasoline on the fire and hopefully get as many users as possible.
Oh, Raymond, I'm excited for you guys. That all sounds so cool. Shout out to Isabel and Siri at BetaKit, by the way. They're friends of ours as well. So we're just simpatico coming out the gates here. It's great. But yeah, no, Raymond, that's so exciting. And again, you guys are really making a difference. That's why I'm happy that you're entering this next phase where you can really do the marketing boost and start really commercializing this thing because it's proven. So let's get it out there. But this was a total pleasure, Raymond. Anything else you wanted to shout out or any folks you want to shout out?
No, again, if I could just double down on anything, the biggest driver in either, increasing revenue, decreasing expenses, the biggest switch that I've noticed in our clients is when they're talking to folks like Boast about their shred claims and other non-dilutive funding that's available. It has been by far the biggest driver that I've seen in reducing burn rate and extending runway. Yeah, like it's funny. We've used other programs and stuff like that, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like my CFO for like this 15K travel grant, he worked for a company called IntroHive here in Fredericton. They ended up raising like 200 million from PSG. And he's like, I don't think they did the level of due diligence on us that this government agency is doing on us for this $15,000 grant. And we're like, never again. But the IRAP and Shred have just been like, it's a process, it's repeatable. To your point, if you're doing things correctly, you're not worried about it.
Exactly. Like, I mean, it's all about like if you set up to document things, but also your R&D systems are operating in a way that is driving it's checking the boxes. I hate saying checking the boxes because it is more subjective than that, but that's what it is. Get the systems in place and then you can repeat it. And then it gets better. And like you even said, it compounds when you're doing even more work and you have more of that funding because you can plug it back into your R&D. Government sees that, you get an even bigger claim the next year in an ideal world, of course, but
Yeah.
no, I love that.
We got clients that are like CTOs and they're like, we don't know. And it's like either you don't need a CTO
Yeah.
because you're not doing anything innovative, or what are you talking about? Like, get a hold of the shred consultants. Like, there has to be something here. If I didn't mention that. So when I was at MBF, my first like standalone business was a distillery. So I have this tiny little distillery. Have with my buddy. We do vodka, gin, and Canadian whiskey. Absolutely fun little business. It's like 280, 300 grand a year in sales. Neither him or I work in it full time. Fun little thing. But we got IRAP funding for that. Like, we worked with the chemist to say, hey, like we want to make a recipe formulation and we don't know whether it's going to like be good or not. So we got a $5,000 grant to work with the chemists. We had to do destructive testing, which is really just drinking rum. But it was a
Sorry, mate.
process we needed to go to. It needed to be tested and everything. And I'm like, my gosh, if you can get rum funded, like, why don't you think you have anything that could work under IRAP or Shred? Obviously, there's areas there isn't anything, but
Yeah,
like just the conversation's free. Like, have the chat.
I love to hear it, Raymond. I can't thank you enough. That was fantastic, and this has been a wonderful chat. Thank you so much for joining us on What the Tech.
Thanks, Paul. I really liked it. Thank you.